All right, everybody. Welcome back. We're here again with Mr. Tanner Durrell, good friend of ours, local entrepreneur in Ottawa, cannabis enthusiast, as well as, I can say, professional, definitely, deep down. And we're here to talk today about, I guess, his background in cannabis and also just like entrepreneurship as far as it goes with cars. We'll obviously lead more into that in the podcast. But yeah, Tanner, welcome. Thanks for coming by, dude.
Hey, thank you so much. Thanks for having me on Cabin in the Clearing.
Yes, sir.
Hey, super stoked to be on here.
Yeah, and I guess I'll start off by just giving a quick shout out to KOT. We got some good shit in the house today. I think it's the lemon verbena that you got going.
It's lemongrass.
Yeah, lemongrass. Yeah, that good shit.
We're sponsored by KOT. Everybody check out the links that we have in the description below. Only do, I think, nationally, right? It's only Canada exclusive right now?
Yeah, I believe Keoki's just doing Canada as of right now, but I'm sure as time progresses and he gets more further in his business, he's going to be shipping hopefully internationally, at least maybe even to the States, to start off. But yeah, check out KOT. We're going to link Keoki's information below as always, and you can check it out for yourself. Mitigaman Agriculture. But yeah, Tanner, so I guess a good place to start is like both of us are huge fans of cannabis, clearly, for a long time. We were in it back in the day. I mean, as well as Guy, we can attest to back in the day.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I smoked some weed for sure before. I don't, not anymore, but that's just a personal choice, It's like people don't drink, some people don't smoke weed. And yeah, that's just, it's just my choice now, so.
Big time. It's all about preference in the end. And sometimes
100%.
Your preference at the beginning is just you can smoke a shit ton of it. And then as time progresses, sometimes you just got to kind of lean back and kind of like take a side edge to the cannabis and only enjoy on the like odd occasions. And some people can't even consume now like on a regular. So it's just sometimes your body changes and so does the cannabis, the way that it interacts with it.
Yeah, very true.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Actually, I guess that's a good kind of lead into my first point. Like, that's probably one of your biggest passions. I'm assuming if you could elaborate on the usage of cannabis in the first place and how it is very person dependent, like on the individual. And it's a lot of people, like they say, oh, why do you consume? And it's like, well, to get high, and it's like, that's not really the case for a lot of people that consume, So like you said, whether it's their preference to consume or not, like what would you say is like some of your medical kind of benefit side that you looked at that kind of like got you interested in it?
Big time. So like for myself, it started like back whenever I was a young teenager, just kind of like indulging a little bit recreational with cannabis. I ended up having really, really bad chronic back pain due to an accident that happened whenever I was a little kid, that then ended up leading into some nerve issues whenever I was a young teenager.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I ended up I wasn't able to see straight. I wasn't able to walk. I wasn't able, like all my senses, basically all the nerve endings on the back of my neck started getting pulled by my muscles being so tense, and
Wow.
it was messing with all my senses and anything that was connected to my nerves. So basically every single function that your body does. So as time progressed, I got put on to about 6 to 7 pills a day, like muscle relaxers, anti-inflammatory, stuff like that.
Okay.
And when I was 18, my doctor wanted to put me on narcotics. So they wanted to put me on codeine. So for myself, I started really kind of searching out there, being like, I don't think this is going to be a good option for me. I'm a young kid. I don't want to get onto a medication that could like last a lifetime.
Yeah.
Also could lead to problems down the road.
For sure. So
So I really started to indulge and look into cannabis. I ended up finding a clinic called NAC, National Access Cannabis, that used to be on Wellington Road. Yeah. And I was actually the person that got me my medical license is a huge entrepreneur in the cannabis industry named Angelo, and he runs one of the best compound pharmacies in Ottawa called Hybrid Farm.
Yo, shout out.
Yes.
Farm.
He hooked me up with my license, got me like really educated on what cannabis could do and how it could help me on my everyday life, which really started my journey. And with that journey, it started kind of going a lot further than what I expected. I started doing a lot of research, learning all about how the cannabis plant could help me, help other people, and just its benefits and everything like that. Of course, back then it was 2016, 2017.
So legalization.
And, yeah,
Right.
pre-legalization, and there was still a lot of stigma around it. There wasn't a lot of information. There wasn't a lot of people that would talk to you about it. So the thing is I got the information through North NAC. And then started moving into the cultivation side of things. Just as medical cannabis was really expensive. There was only a few licensed producers that were out there, and you had to get it shipped from them. So you also had to pay shipping costs on top of your cannabis costs. So it ends up bringing up the dollar quite a bit. So I started looking into growing. I ended up getting an opportunity to work with a gentleman that was in Michigan, and he taught me all through Instagram how to cultivate and how to grow. We literally just sent messages back and forth, and he would try to help me, give me little tips, if it was irrigation or if it was my lights or if my humidity was off, stuff like that. He would kind of give me little tips and tricks to kind of really dial in my grow. And this is what really exploded my passion for the plant. The more I started working with it, yes, I've had my ups, yes, I've had my downs. I've had plants that haven't yielded over an ounce, spent over 4 months on them. It happens. It's all about the name of the game. You go up, you go down, you just keep moving forward. So for me, I learned so much, and it took a while. I had friends that would look at my weed and be like, yo, is that actually weed? Like the thing is you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, of course.
So then I really dove in. I went heavy into education again. Took about 8 months, stopped growing, took 8 months, looked into every educational site that I could, found some really good grow Bibles that I still have to this day, and really dove into the really growing side of things. Found that like genetics really turned out to be like my huge passion of cannabis, just because genetics is where the effects lay. If you don't have good genetics, you won't have good effects. And then also if it's not grown right, you're not going to get the good, true representation of those effects and the plant. So what I started doing was I started looking for really crazy genetics all over the world. So in the UK, in the US, in Europe, and tried to find the best breeders that were out there to find the best product possible. And this is still kind of a little bit pre-legalization. And as legalization broke out, I got into the industry, and this is where I met JP.
Yeah, super at Dave, dude.
Big time, the good old superette. Where we had so much fun at the beginning of the industry. It was just chaos. Nobody kind of knew what they were doing, but hey, we were all doing it. We were getting forward. We were moving forward with the industry, and it was all about the fun of it. And that just kept going. So the more people that I talked to, the more people I realized shared the same passion as mine. But then it also then started going more into wellness. And actually kind of like for myself now, I don't actually consume as much as I used to. I maybe consume like maybe once or twice a day. Very little. It's more kind of more medicinal. So kind of like my path with cannabis has changed as well as time has gone on. And that's why if you don't consume, you don't consume, and it's okay. Sometimes it just doesn't agree with you. Cannabis doesn't agree with everybody.
Absolutely.
I definitely, well, I take CBD.
Yeah.
I take CBD just a bit.
On the CBD kick.
So I take CBD pretty much like every day. I've been taking CBD for like, I don't know, like maybe like a year, probably now. I'd say at least a year, maybe even
I'd say
more.
it is about a year by now.
Yeah, probably even more than a year. But yeah, I definitely take it almost pretty much every morning with coffee, just like the smallest bit, depending on how much. This is like pretty much no THC in the CBD at all. It's just like pure CBD. And like, yeah, it's just like a wellness thing in the morning too, especially if you're drinking a lot of coffee, if you're working or whatever. I think like a small amount, and it just adds to like the kind of level out, I guess you could say.
Big time. It's quite amazing how much CBD has and how many properties it has and how many different issues it can help with. It's quite an extraordinary plant, and that's one of the reasons why I love it so much, and I think so many people share the same passion.
Absolutely. Like even touching on say like live rosins and concentrates and things like that, like Cody Colson who's one of the big hash pressers in Canada. his philosophy is always like, when I'm watching his stories and stuff, is like, it's all about source material. So exactly going back to what you said, is like the proper genetics, the proper representation. It's not all about just the THC, but it's also about these terpene oils that exist in the plant. That really, with the THC, is what kind of creates an effect. It's like one heavy terpene amount over another is going to give you either a more like body high or a more like maybe elevated sort of experience or sort of thing. So it's cool how that is really important. So that is the root of it all, is really like your source material, right? Like, so going back on what you were saying, I guess, like
Big time. And exactly what you said. The old school grower that I met through Instagram, he always used to iterate that to me, was just start with good genetics, start with good genetics. If you don't start off with good genetics, you're not going to end up with a good result. And the thing is it all goes down to literally just starting off with that seed, making sure you properly phenohunt. You find that structure that looks the best. You find that smells super sweet, and then you back cross that. And doing that and taking the time to actually develop your genetics to make sure that your seeds are really consistent as well. So that if you are selling seeds or you're a distributor in that sense, make sure that everything is consistent, so that if you pop 5 seeds, you get seeds that are very, very unison. So then your grower knows that they're going to end up with a good end result. It's phenomenal. And like you were saying, like with Cody Colson and everything, they really dial into what is like the best thing about the plant. And that's the trichomes, it's the oils, it's the terpenes, it's the cannabinoids, it's the unison of all of it. One of our good buddies, Eric Millette, who used to work for Aurora, now is working at 710, he gave me the best description for how terpenes and cannabinoids work together. Cannabinoids are basically like your plane, and your terpenes are your destination. So even though everybody says indica sativa hybrid, the thing is, it's all about your terpenes, and that's where your high is going to go. If you have more lemony, citrusy, it's probably going to be lean more sativa. If it's more gassy, earthy, has more like hoppiness to it, it might lean a little bit more indica. And then you might have those like ones that sit a little bit in the middle that have the combination of both.
That's actually a really good point. And what's kind of cool for any listeners that honestly are just maybe not as well versed in cannabis stuff, and like if we can actually relate it quite well to Keoki's tea, for example. Like Keoki mentioned it in some of his podcast before, that certain types of teas are good for like muscle relaxing or certain things. So that's terpenes. Theoretically, that's what that is. That's like that essential oil in that plant that's creating lavender, helps you relax. There's properties of lavender you can find in indica strains, like that kind of thing. And it's funny you say that, because like sometimes I'll see something, classified as hybrid or classified as indica, but I look at, especially if it's a company that lists them, which is great, like terpene profiles on them will be caryophyllene and limonene. Those two are my favorite, like hands down. Those are two I always look for. Caryophyllene is a little more prominent in indica strains for anyone who wants to know. It's a little more peppery, a little more spice, I guess I'd say. Limonene's citrusy, lemon fruits, the citrus fruits, things like that. I find the combination of those two together, especially with a higher THC, if you want to talk about high THC, and then a high terpene amount, those help me relax. So to me, it's always hybrid. That always feels like a hybrid effect, regardless of if it's classified as indica or the other. It's like, because the limonene tends to elevate, make me feel a little more euphoric, happy, but I still feel relaxed, and I'm not like head buzzed,
Big time.
That makes sense.
Oh, hugely. And I think it's why we kind of pair well together too, is because the limonene and the caryophyllene are my top 2 as well.
Yeah.
So literally any strain I try to find, because studies have shown that caryophyllene actually binds to your CB2 receptors the same way that CBD does, in THC I think does a little bit as well. So it's one of the best ones, for studies show, for pain relief. And then for limonene, it's kind of like a lot of studies show that it's more good for like a mood elevator. So having the combination of both of those for myself is with dealing with chronic pain and stuff like that. I find with the combination of those at the end of a day, end of a stressful day, it's just a perfect mix.
Really,
and
yeah?
it just kind of sets me into the right mood, so I can chill, relax, kind of do a little bit on the side, and then I'm perfect for the end of the night.
Absolutely. And tea's, going back to the tea thing, it's pretty versatile in the sense that like you can drink certain kinds of tea in the morning and you're not necessarily going to feel sleepy, but this citrusy lemony tea is something I'd probably enjoy more in the daytime, morning, like whatever. But if I was drinking like an earthy, like raspberry tea or like something along those lines, it'd probably be more nighttime, because it'd be more relaxed and things like that. It's the same kind of concept. It's just cool how this is all nature, at the end of the day, I guess is my point. But
It's sorry. Go
Oh
ahead.
no, I was just sorry. Go ahead. I was just gonna say actually, it's crazy what you guys were saying earlier. What you were saying about 2016 and how like, I mean, it's so new. I guess I never in my mind I never even really considered like the education part. It's actually like what we're 2022. It's only like what like 6 years, not even.
Yeah, and we legalized in 2018, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, and we only opened stores in like September or April or something.
Yep.
It was like October it got legalized in 2018, but then April was the first
That's
store.
crazy. I never even
So
thought
it's
of
on
that.
the
So it's
cusp of
like
2019.
because I guess
anyway,
before that nobody really had proper like weed education. I guess like
Yeah,
well, not in
and-
Canada anyway. Not like proper education.
Oh, it's true. Like even because even that's actually talking about the fun days of beginning of Super Ed. Exactly what Guy's saying is like we even saw like the dynamic of people learning what terpenes were. Like people were all of a sudden like educated on THC, but they weren't educated. Neither was I really. I can't say I was like I can't be a hypocrite and say I knew everything. But it's like we actually at the beginning also were like, oh, high THC, that's what you want to buy. But it's like really that's kind of an arbitrary thing to look at. Like it's smell, it's growing technique, it's terpene profile, and then yeah, that was like over time. Oh, now we have edibles. Now we know about edible ingestion and how that hits differently, and like and so it's very beneficial actually. Like the fact that it's legalized in that sense that we can research it and like
It's
and, like
huge.
Yeah, like education is a huge part of it. I could only like imagine.
Yep. And just to kind of like swing it back to about like what you were saying with tea, it kind of education goes right back to even like learning more about your teas and stuff like that. You can actually correlate it very much to cannabis. I actually used to be like a tea connoisseur back in the day I used to work at Tivana. And the correlation between tea and cannabis is incredibly similar. Exactly kind of how JP was saying, like with the taste, the flavor, stuff like that. Your white teas, your black teas, your green teas, oolong, stuff like that, everything will have a different effect. So depending on how you want to feel, if you get a white tea with like say lavender in it, it's going to give you more of an uplifting effect. But because it has the lavender in it, it's going to give you a little bit more calm. So it'll give you that caffeine boost, but it's not going to make you anxious because it has that lavender. So kind of similar with finding a strain that's a high potency THC, but you have linalool in it. It's going to give you that nice strong buzz, but it's not going to spike you up there because that linalool is going to keep you on a decent level. There used to be a strain that literally everybody bought. It was Sunset 3.5. It always sat
Sour
at 23.
Kush.
Yep. By LBS. Yeah.
Sour Kush. Yeah. So that's something that's always like, man, and it's not. I'm not hating or anything, but like, it's just something that I've always wondered, like, where the
Strain
hell
names, eh?
do strain names come from? Because like, like I feel like you could just like, grow weed in your backyard and then you could just call it like blue lemon or something. You know what I mean? Like you can literally like, it's definitely a marketing tactic for sure, especially if you're looking at the black market. Like, like before weed was legal, it's like, I know skunks are real and AK-47 is a real strain and stuff like that, but like, you know what I mean? Like, you get what I'm saying?
No,
like,
it's so true. And
you can
and-
literally just tag anything,
but,
and
it's
then
funny?
you're like, there's blue socks.
Well, that's why it's funny coming from
I guess not blue
like
socks,
more
but-
almost like a consumer perspective, like your perspective. It's good to hear it that way because it's true. It is half and half. It's like half a marketing technique and like kind of bullshit to make it sound glamorous, but then at the same time it's kind of relative. But like so say for example you have a black cherry punch. If you have a company that grows it and then irradiates the shit out of it and kills all the terpenes, makes the THC super high, it's not going to smell like cherries. It's going to smell like hay. It's probably going to smell like shit. So there's no, but then if you get a strain like really well grown, it's like it will actually smell like sweet cherry, like sort of thing. But that's also proper representation of the plant, right? So I feel like people get it almost from a like stoner. Obviously, a lot of it is stoner sitting there being like ice cream cake and like shit like that. But it's when I try like proper quality cannabis, like I'm like UK cheese. It tastes and smells like cheese. Like it like you
I
know
have
what I mean?
smelled weed that smells like cheese before.
But
Yeah.
that's because it's well grown. Like you know what I mean? So
Okay.
it's you're right. Like a lot of times it's like sometimes people will just make up a name. Like
It's so true. Like it's crazy. And that kind of actually ties back to what I was talking about before with the true representation of the flower. Because sometimes you'll have these companies out there, and it's even happening in the legal market, is sometimes there's these companies, they'll grow at this flower, people will try it, and then they stigmatize that strain due to the fact that the company didn't actually grow to its true representation of it, and then they go to they won't try it in another company's because they're stigmatized to the fact that that company didn't cultivate it properly and then think that they don't like that strain. And that's why you also see in the industry people kind of changing up the name slightly because they don't want that stigma to it.
Like I do Wagner's Cherry Jam. There's an example. Black Cherry Punch is what the strain is, but they call it that, and you can kind of identify it as that, and theirs is much better than a lot of others, you know, like
Big time. And shout out to Wagner's.
yeah. Well-made weed.
So just a shout out to Wagner's, and also just a way to kind of transition this is I started getting into actually cannabis prints back in the day. So as much as my cannabis enthusiasm started to grow, I started really kind of falling in love with the actual representation of the plant in its truest flower form. So what I started to do was I started taking these big, beautiful print photos and started printing them out and kind of selling them. So what this did was actually really introduce me into my entrepreneur side, which I guess was always living in me, just from going from growing and like always sometimes failing and just kind of persevering and pushing through and always just being like, I don't care if I fail, I'm going to make it. I'm going to get there. And for myself, I just realized I have a passion towards business and just everything else that's out there. I really got surrounded by weed and focused really heavily on the cannabis industry, but then started seeing what every other industry has to offer out there, which really expanded my entrepreneurial set mind. And I really started diving in to education about everything else around me. So I started digging into finance. I actually started digging into habits and different ways to communicate with people and just trying to build up those like generalized, classic like human behaviors. And what it's actually done is it's taught me, even with using cannabis sales and stuff, it's taught me how people buy and like consumer habits, but also like my own smoking habits, how I correlate my daily activities and how my body naturally goes to wanting to consume cannabis. So it actually taught me a way to healthily make my relationship with cannabis really strong, without going too away from just like heavily consuming, or sorry, other way around, getting away from heavily consuming and not consuming too much, because then I was just aware. And the more that I kind of did these practices, the more it kind of made me look further into business. And then like you go into finance, and then there's habits in finance. But then you also have like your general entrepreneurial habits. So to any of the listeners that are kind of have like a little spark of entrepreneurial spirit and stuff like that in them, one thing that I can always say, like just keep going, keep that consistency. If you're consistent, you'll always keep progressing. All you have to do is make 1% increases, and by the end of the year, you make a 37.5% increase within that 1 year. If you do that for 3-4 years, you're going to almost be hitting 100%. You're going to be way further ahead.
Compounding.
Yep, big time.
And definition of compounding.
Compounding is in finance, it's in education, it's in everything.
We preach that all the time, man.
It's true, actually. No, you're right, because the way that you just said how you do your printing thing, like that would almost even maybe be a good tip for people to expand on their entrepreneurship, is like find a passion you're already passionate about and connect some other form of, whether it's revenue or work, to that original passion, but in a different form. So you're connecting that to your passion of cannabis, but putting it in tangible form in like pictures and prints. So now it's like you could get more skilled at pictures though, in general. Like if you think about it, take away from cannabis, now all of a sudden you're becoming skilled at printing pictures, you know, and you have this other avenue, but it's like you used your original passion of something already to kind of like stand that, if that makes sense. Like
big time. It's a huge thing, is just like branching off of something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, because you'll always love it, like no matter what.
Yeah. The one thing though I will always say is don't make your full-blown passion your full-blown job. Branch off of your passion. Try to learn different things, because if you just use the one thing that you know and the one thing that you love, you might not end up loving it if you just start to work for it. So that's why I always say to branch off, because what it does is it allows you to learn a new skill set, but then it also is using your passion behind it. So then it really helps drive it, but then it allows you to still enjoy that other side of that thing or product or whatever you're doing in the part that you did enjoy it. So it allows you to always have your off side, but then it also allows you to have your work side to it. And that's actually how I started to transition into cars a little bit. Was I started into the printing, and printing actually transitioned me into finding some people that actually print vinyl wraps and stuff like that. Made me really go into like looking into kind of like the entrepreneurial side of automotive. And as I started to learn that journey, it like really kind of opened my eyes to like, there are so many different avenues out there. And exactly what Guy was saying with compounding. Compounding isn't everything. So it's like fitness. You can compound your fitness. It's how you get more fit. It's how you get more healthy. Compounding how you eat. So making sure that you're always eating healthily and compounding that. It's okay to have those breaks, but if you compound healthy eating, you're eventually going to get healthy.
That was like what Sungi, our other friend, had on a podcast.
Yeah.
Said, like he's like creating habits, like compounding habits, like so good eating habits, like same thing.
Yep, and it's the same thing with like financials and everything. It's just the more you compound, the more you're going to get better at it. And sometimes I say it to a lot of like some of my employees, is literally just sometimes fake it till you make it. Make that habit. Force that habit. If you force it for a little while, that force will start dissipating. And then all of a sudden you're doing that habit and you're like,
It becomes
whoa.
natural after.
Yeah.
Totally. And another good little habit to get into is celebrate little victories. Like, you know, because if you don't celebrate little victories, like even with Guy and I'd say like the first podcast that came out, we were like, fuck, the video didn't work. Now we don't have video. So we just did audio with a picture on it, but it was like celebrated. You know, we were happy about it. We were stoked, and it just leads to more and more and more. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of both though at the same time. Because remember we were talking actually on the other podcast to Sungi specifically about that, and he was telling a story. I forget what exactly it
Remain
was.
humble though too. Yeah.
No. But it was like they got this thing and they accomplished this thing, and like I think he was referencing his girlfriend was like, oh, we should celebrate, and he's like, yeah, but he's like, you know, what's the next thing? And it's kind of like our music video, you know, in a way if we think about it, right? Like I'm stoked, and of course celebrate the small, you know, the small. Little
victories.
Yeah, small victories. Yeah, exactly. But then at the same time, it's like, that's cool, but it's like, what's the next thing? You know, like what am I doing
Keep
next?
your eye on the prize.
Yeah. And keep that hustle going. You know, keep that consistency.
At the end of the day, it's
going.
always balance, right? Like it's always like we always talk about the word balance. Like it's just balancing out your lifestyle, balance in your
Well,
mind.
it's adding good balance. It's adding good value. True. You know, because you can balance whatever you want, but I mean, if the balance is not. Because balance, I feel like has to be more defined than just like, oh, what's balance? You should ask the question, what is balance? You know, and based on what you want to do, you know, you should add good, valuable balance to whatever that you want to do, if that makes any sense. You know?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I love that you guys brought that up. Balance is such a huge, big thing, and like I love that you kind of elaborated and kind of went a little bit deeper and being like, yeah, balance. It's making sure you're balancing the two right things.
Exactly.
Because sometimes people are really focused and they're balancing two negative things instead of a positive and a negative. Or they're like too focused on something, but then they think they're balancing it out with something else, but they're not actually.
It's true. They consider it balancing, but one's actually weighing the other one out.
Yeah, almost.
Exactly. So that actually kind of goes into, with the entrepreneur side of things, the happy hustle. So one of my favorite entrepreneurs, his name is John Lee Dumas. He actually hosts a podcast as well. And he always talks about the happy hustle. And a lot of the people in 2020, 2021, 2022, it's all about the grind. It's all about the grind. It's all about the grind. But don't forget to make sure you're happy along with the grind. If you're not making sure that you're doing those little things like the little victories and little successes, you're going to end up getting to a place, yes, you might be successful, but you're not going to be happy. The thing is if you work on them both, as time goes on, you're going to build up both of them and you're going to have a perfect balance of happy and hustle. So then you're going to be super happy. You're going to be in a great place and you're going to have businesses running and you're going to be successful. So learning how to create that balance between life and work is such a huge thing that I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we get lost in it. We just want to make sure that we're always going forward.
Yeah, it's true. The 2021, 2022 hustle, like, let's go. Like, hustle, what's the next thing? It's true. It's something that I've actually realized recently where it's like, now you need to rest too, man. Like, you know what I mean? You can't just keep hustling like all the time. Like, yeah, you should work on your craft. Don't get me wrong. Like, even if you're working a full-time job, let's say, you know, maybe don't do it every single night, you know, maybe do 3 times a night to start off, you know, like just as long as you're contributing like that 1%, like you're saying, because you can get workout burnouts 100%, you know, and that's what it's like this like myth that you just have to hustle every single day. And it's like, you do, but like you also have to like take time to like recuperate your, you know.
Yeah, find that balance where it's like, okay, I'm gonna hustle for 30 minutes, and then I'm gonna take 45 minutes, make myself some dinner, rest a little bit, and then I'll go back to it.
Yeah.
And then at least you're finding that balance, so you're making sure you're like giving yourself nutrition, and then you're also making sure you're giving yourself a little bit of rest, and then you're also gonna come back at it more clear-headed and stronger, and you're gonna actually accomplish more by giving yourself that break than trying to just push through and get it all done at once. I really like that point, guy.
That's I really like what you just said right there. That was like that makes a lot. You'll probably be more efficient at the end of the day by taking that 20-40 minute span of like break, coming back fresh, and you'll be able to commit more energy to it. That's a really good point.
Yeah, it's like caring for yourself enough that you feel confident and well rested and like prepared to do the task at hand or whatever, instead of just forcing yourself through stress and fatigue and shit.
Big time. And like, don't get me wrong, there's always going to be those nights that you're like, fuck, I just want to get this this project finished.
Yeah.
But just like literally, it's like, if you do that, say you push yourself for those 24 hours, give yourself at least a 12-hour break after. And then that way, at least you got that project done, but then you can at least give yourself that time of rest to be happy about that win, that you got that project done, and that you can relax, you can chill out, you can go see your family, spend time with the people that you care about.
Thus, reinforcing the rest of your life.
Yes.
And making you happy, right? That's going back to it, right? It's literally part of it.
Exactly.
So true, man.
No, I remember a lot for a long time, especially just like being a musician. Like I was always like, I would almost I fell into this rut where I was like, okay, I got to practice. Like I got to practice like every single day. And like you do in a way, but like not to the extent where it's like kind of like going back to what you're saying, it takes the fun out of it and it becomes like a chore and it's not as fun. And then you become stressed out. Like I was like, I got to be like a really good guitar player. Like, you know, I mean, the best is a long stretch, but like up there, you know, I want to be recognized musically, let's say, right? And it's just like practice. And then like, as I'm practicing, that ideology is like in the back of my head and it just starts stressing me out. And like, I'm not even having fun with it anymore. So it took me a long time personally to kind of like let that go and just be like, man, who cares if you don't play guitar for like, you know, a couple days? Like you'll come back to it even stronger and like more ideas and like, so it applies to so many things, not just music. It applies to art. It applies to, you know, whatever you're trying to do. But building good habits is such an important thing, man. Especially like, you know, reading a book at night, you know, not going on your phone, you know, all these different types of things that actually help you like with your sleep, you know. Yeah, it's just there's so much techniques that you can adapt to literally that are gonna get you that 1% daily in order to reach your goal at the end of the year, you know, let's say.
Yep, and it's just focusing too on that 1%, because like say if you're like so focused on trying to practice the guitar every day, then maybe it's like the one day that you don't practice guitar, maybe you just look up a new riff, and then you still got that 1%. You might not have practiced, but you at least got a little 1% for the next day that you end up going back and practicing. Hey, you have something else in your back pocket.
Or even finding different things to be interested in that subject. Like, let's say I'm like, okay, like I'm not going to play guitar today, but like, oh, I want to like nerd out about amplification, you know? And you start learning about amps and how amps work. And like right then you just found another technique to re-fall in love with your craft in a completely different way.
It was like the first time I learned finger picking with guitar. Like it was like, oh shit, this is a whole other avenue of just like, you know, you're like identifying which three fingers are the bottom strings, your thumb is the top three, and it's like it just creates a different sound, different feel. Like I learned how to play Stairway to Heaven. It was just like basic shit, but like, well, it's not basic song, but like
no, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's one of them that you learn for sure.
But
like,
yeah, it's one that's like a standard for finger picking style. But yeah, it was like I totally agree. It's the same thing with going back to the printing thing of doing your cannabis printing. It's just finding another way to enjoy what you love, you know. And like seeing our music video out, you know, it's just like we took like music and put it into fruition, and now it's like has a visual with it that like gives me the vibe of the song now, and it's like that's so cool to look back on. And
took forever though.
Yeah,
it took like a year to like.
We had
just
that
like,
song going before we even started the podcast thing.
Yeah,
like, yeah.
Podcast is just like another hustle, like, you know, like just a way to, like, you know, and
Literally.
give entertainment to people, and if they like it, they get something from it, then that's awesome. You know, that's what we're here to do. Also to promote our music and promote other people's music, but not just music too. We're like broadening out to, you know, entrepreneurship, like you were talking about, and just like, yeah, we're just a local community too, especially around Ottawa. I don't think there's like another podcast that I can think of that it's like kind of doing what we're doing in a way. I don't know
No.
if I've heard
I
of
mean,
anyone.
if you want to put it in perspective of how cool today was, for example, it's like we were upstairs earlier, guy was hustling, doing his job, and while I was recording with Connor, who we've had on this podcast before, who has a band, who we're releasing music for, who has his own organic cleaning business, who was talking to Tanner, who also is doing his own car business thing and cannabis business thing, and it's all interconnected, and it's all people helping each other, and it's like it's like almost like we're self-sufficient as a crew, you know what I mean? Like just as the crew we have here and the people we've had on the podcast, but even as like a general community, you know, it's like it's so easy to just have like your whole life dictated by the people around you and not have to resort to like bullshit. Like
It's so true. And like even for like entrepreneurs, one thing I commonly hear all the time is you are going to be like the 5 people you surround yourself with.
Yeah,
And
true.
making sure that you surround yourself with good people that are going to like always forward thinking and kind of think the same way that you do. It's all about that, and making sure that you stick with people that stick with your true values and where you want to go. And you will get there. It just takes time.
True.
And it's even like you guys saying that it takes a year to, like it took you guys a year to get that music video out and stuff. Hey, but the best things take time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I-
Patience is a virtue for sure.
So true. And I know it's hard for people not to be negative because I'm like this, like myself. I'm very negative and hard on myself sometimes when I don't have other like people around to kind of reinforce an idea or something. And it's like, but that is something that I've learned to control because I noticed that with other people in my life too. And it's just like, if you can try not to be negative. Like try not to forcefully be negative or always shitting on stuff or always talking down on yourself, because I find that is exactly like the idea of environment that manipulates you into becoming that way. And I found like I literally became stagnant anytime I did that shit. You know, and it's like, and again, it's hard to not have a bad day and then not go home and be like, fuck, everything sucks. But like, if you don't do that actively, or you're not sharing like a negative post on Instagram being like, you know, some meme related to how you feel, like that kind of shit. It's like that all reinforces
Damn.
your feelings. It's true.
That's crazy,
Yep.
dude.
It's true.
I never
right?
even thought of that. Yeah, that's nuts.
I know. I thought about it the other day. It's like sometimes I like post it. I'm like, that reinforces my negative vibe. Like, you know, that's all that does. Like,
So it's actually funny that you say that. Recently, I've been looking into an entrepreneur actually was talking about affirmations, not affirmations. So affirmations are like when you say to yourself, like you want things to happen. So like I am rich, and stuff like that. So it's those little
I'm
things.
fucking loaded.
Yeah. So, but the thing is for an affirmation, when you say those things, your brain goes, yeah, right. Because you don't truly believe it. You're just saying it because somebody's telling you that this will make you feel a little better. What you should be really saying to yourself is, why am I so rich? Because then what it starts doing is it starts allowing your brain to start thinking about what you have and what's around you instead of what you don't have and what you're losing. And
That's so interesting, man.
Yeah, it
That's
starts
crazy.
training your brain to think more positively. And if you start thinking that way, you'll start excelling forward a lot quicker because your time isn't spent on negativity. It's always spent on forward thinking. It's always being solution oriented and being like, you know what, there's this issue in my life, but you know what? How can I make it better? So even though, like, say my car broke down. Oh, well, you know what? I get a rental for a few weeks. Hey, I get to have a great rental. It's a great way to kind of put a positive spin on something that's negative. And just train your brain. So creating healthy habits of how you're thinking. So habits also go into internal and your subconscious, and how your subconscious is naturally thinking as well.
It's interesting. I mean, there's I don't know where I remember hearing something, but I mean, it stuck with me for so long. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know, but maybe it was a quote or some shit I read somewhere along the line. But I remember this. I remember like going back to what you were saying, Justin, about like, oh, you feel like, I guess this would apply to emotions and just feeling down or whatever. And sometimes it's good to remember that like it was this thing where it was like emotions are like a cloud, you know, and they just pass by. You know, they're not here to stay, essentially, you know? And that stuck with me so much because every time, like, you know, I'm thinking something, whatever I'm feeling, I just remember, like, this is not here to stay. This is temporary, you know? And that has helped me a lot personally. So
Yeah, it's so true. A book I'm reading right now had a similar line to that. It's like
Okay.
your thoughts are literally thoughts. Like every thought you have is a literal thought. It's like your brain's just thinking something. And you're like, holy shit, yeah. Like, and it sounds simple, but it's like it's very complex. Like it's like everything that you're creating, every stress, every anxiety. It's like it's because you've chosen to go that direction in your head, and like it's so weird.
And it's so crazy how powerful your subconscious is, because your subconscious is the thing that sometimes will throw those things into your conscious thoughts. Where if you can learn to kind of create like a healthy habit in your subconscious at the same time as learning your consciousness and how your consciousness works, you create like almost like this orb of like healthy thinking. It's crazy.
And you realize how, I don't know, nobody could convince me otherwise, but I mean, like school systems and elementary, and it's like I guarantee teachers had good intentions for kids and stuff growing up, but like just the way society is developed, like we're so conditioned. Like that's the reason so many people are suffering from anxiety and stress and feeling all these dark like thoughts. If you really think about the root of like all evil, so to speak, it's like a lot of it is conditioning in society. It's because society wants you to be a certain way, like to fit in.
Big time. And I'm happy you said that, to be honest, because it's why I'm personally taking a social media break right now. I've cut off all my social media for the fact of outside influence. This society and the way that social media and the media has designed our thoughts to think is that we need more. We always need something more, or we need something new, or we don't have enough. And one thing that I was trying to do for myself is cut out social media so that I could really be present and stop always being here and start being here. Just so that I can really focus on, okay, what's around me? What do I need to work on, instead of always looking at other people's stuff? So that I'm actually trying to train myself so that whenever I go back onto social media, I'm going to create a healthy habit where it's only just a business oriented thing. It's not something that I'll use for scrolling or on a natural, like on a day-to-day basis.
yeah, man,
Wow.
I'm pretty bad with social media in that regard. Like obviously I do like use social media to promote it, but like man, I'll catch myself sometimes just like opening my phone for like nothing. You know what I mean? I'll be working or
Yeah.
something, and I'll like opening my phone, and then I'm like, but I catch, like I know I'm aware of it, right?
Yep.
I'm full on aware of it. I'm like, hey, this is fucking stupid.
Awareness is always the
and
first
then I
step.
just like I turn it off, but like, and then sometimes I'll just do it again. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's bad. It's bad, but I'm at least I'm aware. You know what I mean? I think that's
yeah.
the first step for sure. But
And that all to say, we will not be linking any of Tanner's social media.
yeah, you just shot yourself in the foot, bud.
I'm just kidding.
But actually, your note on that about the phone thing. So the phone thing, just as I was talking about healthy subconscious habits, is phones are designed that when you hear that ding, your brain subconsciously goes to your phone. So that's,
Yeah, I don't have any notifications or anything.
yeah, so
It's
it's
on silent.
learning how to like take away those cues so that your brain stops going to that when you feel that cue or you hear that cue. And it's crazy how like people have learned this to be able to put this into play, so people are adapt to new habits, and then this is what it creates.
Oh yeah, and one kind of little thing I wanted to mention, it was just a thought process I had when you were saying like the always wanting more and seeing like people's lifestyle and achievements. It's like even people will get stressed out over like a really, really planned nice picture of like someone in like a dress, sitting on a sunroom drinking their coffee out of a nice mug or some shit, and they're like, oh man, that person's reading a book in the sun on a chair with a nice like espresso, they have everything, or like, and that's where, like you said, it gets skewed, because it's like, yeah, maybe the picture's cool, or maybe like well done, or they have a very nice like style and dynamic to their social media for sure. But like, if you really stop and think about it, it's like, yo, I could do that right now. Like, I could literally just go sit, read a book, and drink coffee in a chair in a nice sunlit room. And it's like, you're there, you're in it, you're experiencing that moment at that time. Like, who cares about that picture? That picture's like irrelevant at that point. You know what I mean? Like, it shouldn't dictate your feelings towards those kind of things. Like,
You guys, do you ever listen to Jordan B. Peterson?
No.
You don't know Jordan B. Peterson, no?
No.
Oh man, he's a psychologist actually from Alberta who exploded up online, and like now he's like, I guess, an online influencer. But anyway, he has these talks like, anyway, and he was talking about this thing, and like I'll send you some links and you can look him up and stuff. But yeah, I'd say like for sure, like maybe like he's he's so wise in politics that it's almost like I don't even know what to make of it. But I don't look at him for politics. I look at him for like just like standard like psychology. But he has so many cool things. Very controversial because of all his shit that he says. Basically, like it mind fucks you, and you're like, okay, like is this anyway? But there's this thing. It's like, you know, and he was saying something like, you know, you see this guy drive by in like a red like Corvette or something, you know, when then he drives by and you just see like this super hot woman, blah blah, and like they drive by and like he looks all rich and everything, and then you're just like, oh, and you're envious, you don't even know why. You're like, oh, I wish I was that guy, you know. But as the guy drives away and turns around the corner, you know, that guy just like stole a shit ton of money from his job, just lost his job. The chick sitting in the fucking passenger seat is a prostitute who does cocaine, and all they do is argue all the time, like shit like that. And I'm like, wow. Yep. And that's what social media is, man. You know, you can post and you can be like, oh, this is my life, this is how great it is, but like deep down, man, you're hurting.
It's so true. And it's going back to kind of like the entrepreneurship thing. It's literally like about overnight successes. There's no such thing about an overnight success. The only reason why they become an overnight success is because they compounded all their work until that one moment that then launched their business. So they spent the last 5, 6, 10 years working their ass off to get to where they needed to be to do that launch, to get them that overnight success. Nobody's ever an overnight success. It takes time, but the way that we see it is, oh, you became a millionaire in 2 days.
Instant gratification.
Yeah. Right. So it's...
Yeah, like, I mean, not that it's like a super...
Instagram
yeah,
vacation.
Pretty much. Well, and it's not that like to say like our music is like, I still want to obviously work hard and get better music over time, but it's like if I was to say like, because people give me compliments on our music and they're like, wow, man, you can spit bars and like shit like that, and it's like, that's great song you just launched. This all happened within the last like year or two. I've been writing fucking rap lyrics for like over 10 years. Like it's like, you know what I mean? Like that. Like, if I had done that 10 years ago, you'd be like, wow, you suck, dude. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, people see it and they're like, damn, man, you're actually really good. And it's like, I'm appreciative of it, of course. Like, and it's like, I feel like I have gotten to a good spot, but it's like, that took a fucking long time. Like, it's like, I you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to even release music in the past. So anyway, it's just like you said, no one sees that. No one sees that. You know, I'm not saying I'm an overnight success, but all the things you're seeing now is an accumulation of stuff that I've worked for, you know? And it's like, so we take it to heart when we release these things.
Oh yeah, 100%, man. Yeah, 100%.
And honestly, I guess on that note, Tanner, like it has been stellar having you in today, dude. Like,
yeah,
honestly, great
man,
conversation.
Like I was like, okay, it's cool. We're gonna talk about weed, man. You mind fucked me, man. Straight up mind fucked me, man.
Hey,
so thank you for that.
Yeah, no worries, guys. I'm like super happy to be here, and like you said, great conversation, and like I can't wait to see where this goes. Like
just keep hustling, man.
Definitely gonna get you back, man. We want to talk more about your career and the automotive, everything that you were saying earlier about that. We definitely have to have you back for sure.
Big time.
Even this, everything that you just said, like about the business, I think a lot of people who are listening would actually get a lot of good value from
Agreed.
it. So,
yeah.
Big time trying to throw out those value bombs.
That's why it pays to be real, you know?
Hey. What does the future look like for it's a question I ask everyone.
So for myself, it's basically right now I'm trying to align a few businesses. I'm trying to get those things launched while staying in the cannabis industry. Really just trying to focus on like what my true beliefs are and just trying to compound as much education as possible. So literally for the next 2 years, it's just educating myself on anything that I possibly can that will relate to business or learning or just development in personal life or just like communication as well. So just literally just trying to power and move forward and trying to just teach myself and learn more about myself and the world.
Man, I couldn't have said it any better. Honestly, dude, that sums up our philosophy of this podcast, man, in a lot of ways. That's awesome, dude. Yeah, fucking stellar having you on today, dude.
Yeah, happy to be here, guys.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Awesome. Peace, guys.
Have a great night.
Like and share, or don't like and share, but hopefully you like and share.
Oh yeah, like our shit, don't like our shit.
That's it. Peace and love.
Share this shit.